Welcome to the 25th lesson of SmartKnitter, Knit Instructions Level 2. In this lesson, we will go through the narrowing options. Let's look at the first file. This is a panel with fashioning marks on the arm side with a purl stitch base. After translation, we see that the knit loop is overlapping on top of the panel. This makes the fashioning marks not as pretty. In translation setting, under narrowing option, we can swap between traditional method or reverse method. Select the reverse method. Now the narrowing stitch is underneath the panel stitch. Let's move on to the next example. We can see that the narrowing actions on the sides are done separately. We can change this to minimize the knitting time. In translation setting, uncheck the option when L/ are cast off wider than X cm, L/ are cast off separately. We can see that now the racking actions are shared between both sides. Minimize the knitting time. Let's move on to the next example. This is a panel with pointelles. We can see that the narrowing should be done every 3 rows in SmartGraph, but the system changed it to 4 rows in machine code. This is because we selected no narrowing on carriage side. Under narrowing option, the system would adjust the narrowing position to avoid the carriage side. If we do not want any adjustment made, select Narrow as is. Narrowing is now done according to SmartGraph without adjustments. Let's move on to the next example. This is a file with transferred ribs. Look at the arm side position. The racking distance is quite large, which might create excess tension to the knit loops and break the yarn. Back to translation setting. We can change the option from rack once to rack twice. The stitches are transferred in 2 steps, making it less vulnerable to breakage. Let's move on to the next example. This is also a panel with transfers. Upon translation, we can see that the right side pointelle actions are incorrect. This is because we selected the reverse method in narrowing option, change it to traditional method. Now the transfers are correct. Let's move on to the next example. This is knitted with single system. We can see that there are unnecessary racking actions at the shaping section on the neckline. We should select Narrow as is in the translation setting. Now the actions are correct. Let's move on to the next example. This is a panel with intarsia and ribs. Upon translation, there is a warning for feeder 3 clashing at multiple locations. We can see that the stitches are transferred when feeder 3 is waiting inside the knitting area. This would cause the needles to clash with feeder 3. Let's change the translation setting, as the software would transfer all needles to the front when the narrowing distance is more than 3 needle to prevent yarn breakage. Under narrowing, change to rack twice. As the narrowing is done with racking twice now, needles are not transferred to the front and therefore won't clash with feeder 3. This marks the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching.